Module 6, Part 2, Syllable Structure Processes. In Part 2, I will review syllable structure processes and give several examples of each. In order to be successful on the module completion quiz, it will be necessary for you to apply the knowledge you gain using the in-chapter and end-of-chapter exercises. To understand syllable structure processes, it's important to understand what is meant by the CV-CV pattern and why it is important. Across languages of the world, the alternating pattern of one consonant followed by one vowel is the most common, and some languages allow only this pattern. Other languages allow many other types of syllables, but the CV-CV repeating pattern is nearly universally present in all languages. Furthermore, it can be looked at as the simplest pattern. It reflects a cycle of opening and closing of the jaw. And if you think about most of a child's first or early words, they typically follow this pattern. For example, mama, dada, kitty, etc. Of course, in English, we can have much more complex syllable structures as well. For example, a one-syllable word with two consonant clusters, such as stops, is possible. It has the pattern CCVCC. But as I said earlier, most of children's early words follow the simple CV or CVCV pattern. In this pattern, there is only one consonant in the syllable onset, and there is a nucleus, but no coda in each syllable. There are no consonant clusters, and in English at least, multisyllabic words tend to follow the trochaic or strong-weak, stressed-unstressed pattern or rhythm. Syllable structure processes, then, are ones that change the pattern of the syllable to make it more like, not necessarily exactly like, the basic CV or CV-CV pattern. The four commonly observed syllable structure processes that I will cover are final consonant deletion, weak syllable deletion, cluster reduction, and reduplication. All but the last one of these processes result in a decrease in the number of phonemes in the word. The first two syllable structure processes we will examine are final consonant deletion and cluster reduction. In final consonant deletion, a consonant is removed from the coda of the syllable in order to make it better fit the CV syllable pattern that I discussed in the previous slide. For example, if you applied the process of final consonant deletion to the word cat, transcribed k-a-t, the t would be removed from the syllable coda and the word would be pronounced ka. Notice that applying this process to the word cap will result in both of these words being pronounced the same. So like for many of these processes then, many words that are minimal pairs for an adult would become homophones for the child applying this phonological process. Let's try another example together. How would you apply final consonant deletion to the word teeth? What transcription or pronunciation will result? Pause the recording here and try it. Transcribe teeth, then apply the final consonant deletion process and write down the resulting transcription. So, the word teeth is pronounced t-e-th. So you would remove the th from the coda of the syllable and wind up with just T. Do be careful as you do the exercises in the book with multisyllabic words. You have to think a bit about whether the consonant or consonants following a vowel belong to the coda of the previous syllable or the onset of the next syllable. For example, the final consonant deletion process probably would not apply in the word doggy because the g would be in the onset of the second syllable. Listen, doggy. But the process could apply in a word like doghouse because the g is in the coda of the first syllable in doghouse, dog house. Next, the phonological process of cluster reduction affects syllables that have more than one consonant in the onset or more than one consonant in the coda. So it can apply in either syllable initial or syllable final position. Sequences of two or more consonants, either in the onset or the coda, are called consonant clusters. So in cluster reduction, one or more consonants is deleted from the consonant cluster to make the syllable better fit the CV pattern. For example, if you apply the process of cluster reduction to the word brownie, you would delete one phoneme, most likely the R because it's a more difficult sound, from the onset of the first syllable, and the word would be pronounced bounty. Notice how the word now fits the CV syllable pattern. An example of this process occurring in the syllable coda would be the production of the word fast as fast. In this case, the consonant cluster st, s, and t is in the coda and the t was deleted. Notice that cluster reduction doesn't have to make the syllable fit perfectly into the CV pattern. In this case, the word goes from CVCC to CVC, but it does make the syllable simpler. Notice also that the pronunciation of the word fast becoming fast is an example where it might seem that the change fits the definition of more than one phonological process, either final consonant deletion or cluster reduction. In this case, I'd say it better fits cluster reduction because there is still one consonant left in the coda. If fast just became fa, then I might say that two processes applied, first cluster reduction and then final consonant deletion. The next two syllable structure processes we will examine are weak syllable deletion and reduplication. In weak syllable deletion, an unstressed or weak syllable is removed from a word. This process is especially common if the word does not fit the strong-weak pattern. For example, it's common for kids to substitute nana for banana. Banana has a weak, strong-weak pattern because both the first syllable ba and the last syllable n are weak syllables. By deleting the b, the word now fits the strong-weak pattern. Weak syllable deletion can also reduce a word to one syllable. Again, especially if a two-syllable word does not fit the strong-weak pattern. For example, as in bout for about or round for around. Reduplication is the last of the syllable structure processes in this lecture. In reduplication, a syllable is typically removed and replaced with another syllable in the word. In the word doggy, for example, if the reduplication process were applied, the second syllable g would be removed and replaced by the first syllable to create da-da. In order to get comfortable with identifying the phonological processes just covered, complete exercises 8.1 to 8.4 and review exercise A in your textbook. Check your answers in the back of the book and review the recording and the reading if you find that you made several mistakes. This is the end of Part 2.